morning, everybody. My name is Rabi Tamarhuda. I'm the acting chair and call for Residential and Manufacturing Structural Board meeting of July 8, 2020 to order at 9:34. Hey, Debbie, you have to do the roll call again, or?
Yes.
Yes.
I do.
Yes, I do, Mr. Chair.
Please go ahead and call the roll.
Thank you.
Thank you. Acting chair this morning, vice chair is Ruby Taberholet.
Present?
Gordon Anslow.
Gordon Anslow.
Here.
James Austin is excused. Force Barnes.
Here.
John Camilla.
John Clark.
John Camiller's here.
Thank you. Rich Fry.
Thank you. Rich Fry.
I'm present.
Emily Kemper.
Emily Kemper. Here.
Douglas Lethine.
Douglas Lethine.
Here.
Rich Tover.
Rich Tover.
Here.
Eli Volume.
Eli Volume.
Here.
Mr. Chair, we do
Mr. Chair, we do have a quorum, and I would like to introduce the staff that's connected. Alana Cox, who is our Manager of Policy and Technical Services and Manager of Training and Outreach Services.
I'm here. Good morning.
Tony Rocco.
Tony Rocco, who is our Residential Structural Mechanical Program Chief.
I'm here. Good morning.
Thank you. Mark Heizer, who is our Professional Engineer, Mechanical and Energy Systems Engineer.
Good morning, everyone. I'm here today.
Andy Boulton.
Andy Boulton, who is our Policy Analyst.
Good morning. I'm here.
Thank you. Go ahead.
Thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Chair.
Item C of agenda item 1, we have any change of the agenda or the order of business? I hear none. I rule that the agenda and the order of business approved. Item D, we have the last combined meeting of Energy and Residential Board minutes. In any amendment to the minutes from the board? Okay, I hear none. I rule the draft meeting minute is approved. For the information, the next meeting, regular meeting, is October 7th, 2020. Item 2, public comments. Debbie, any public comments?
Well, I'm turning this over to our Policy Analyst, Andy Boulton.
Morning. Thank you, Mr. Chair. We had some requests for public comment as well as written comments from Oregon Solar Energy Industries Association and Solar Oregon, but they are all on item 7B, and so we're going to address them at that point in the agenda.
Okay. Go down to item 3, reports from building codes.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the board. For the record, Tony Rocco with the division. Just a brief program update for the board today that I had mentioned previously at the last joint board meeting. Our technical team has completed the 2017 Oregon Residential Specialty Code errata, and that document is available on our Residential Structures Program webpage, and it may be downloaded or printed. The errata format is very similar to the standardized format used by many other national code bodies, so it should look familiar to many of you. And aside from that, our team is excited to get the committee process underway for this next ORSC. And that's all for my update. I'd be happy to respond to any board questions. Thank you.
Any question to Tony from the board? Okay, we move on to item 4, communication. We don't have any. Then appeals, none. Unfinished business. Anything there? Unfinished business from building code? I see none. Then we move on to the item 7. This is concerning the code committee. Is Andrew Boulton available to talk about
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
the issue?
Oh, yes, I'm here. Thank you. This is relating to, on the June 9th meeting, the board decided to create a code committee for the 2021 residential specialty code. The results of the solicitation for committee members is in your board packet, and it is ready for your consideration.
Any discussion from the board?
This is John Camiller through the chair.
Okay, go ahead.
I'm sorry, you can hear me?
Yes.
How was there was a much longer list than was recommended. How was that list winnowed down? Who went through that?
I went through the list and put some names based on the different stakeholder in the list. And I tried to put people from jurisdiction and the industry. And that's what I narrowed that list to 9, but it's open to discussion.
Through the chair, this is Emily. I'm just curious, was everyone who was nominated to be on the committee told that they were being nominated before we started our meeting today?
Not from me, maybe the building,
okay.
we have to talk to building codes division.
Okay, I'm just curious, it looks like Mike Goodrich is on the call right now, and so I just was wondering if he or anyone else who might have volunteered to be on the committee is on the call, and if they would like to speak to why they're interested, or, yeah. Mike, I don't want to put you on the spot, but if you wouldn't mind, that would be great.
Chair, is that all right?
Yep.
Yeah. I'm on the call because I looked at the BCD website and saw that I was on the nomination list and wondered if anybody would have a question. I've participated in code committees previously. Have participated in the residential code formation for a number of years now. So that's my general interest. And I'm working again with yeah, thanks.
Thanks for speaking up. I appreciate that. Yeah, through the chair, I just wanted to say, it doesn't look like anyone else who might have volunteered for the committee is on the call. So I would just, if they are, and I'm not seeing you, if you would like to speak up and say what your interest is, and if there's nobody else on the call, then I don't think they have any other questions.
Emily, I had a couple of 2 or 3 calls from the industry, and they proposed some names, but we have a limited number. We don't want to have a board of, because I think we had about 30 plus requests,
right,
and we narrow it to 9 members.
Mm-hmm. In my humble opinion, it seems as if the group that you've selected is a pretty representative swath of all of the people who volunteered. So I don't necessarily have any objection to the group. So it was a good pass.
Thanks.
Mm-hmm.
And the other thing also, they did volunteer. They requested to be in the committee. So.
Right.
This is Eli Volum. A couple thoughts to share through the chair, if that's okay.
Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, so same. I agree with Emily. I think it's a good representative list of the different types of stakeholders that we want to have involved on there. I know a number of those folks, and so I know we have a lot of capable, competent, professional people there. The one thing on my mind is we have some pretty big changes with the energy code, with the net zero ready equivalency, and so I just want to make sure we have a good, solid basis for evaluating the recommendations, and I think it's fairly well covered. I just want to share, I do know David Heslam from Earth Advantage. Full disclosure, I used to work there. I did not work under him. I worked alongside him. And I just think that it might be good to consider having Earth Advantage involvement. They are deeply involved in above code programs and energy performance. So I would just like to throw it out there. I'm not, because of I know him personally, and I've worked with him, I'm not going to make any recommendation, but I'd like to throw it out there for the rest of the board that we might want to consider having a little bit deeper bench on the energy side. Now, I know we have some builders on here that do above code, the energy stuff, with new construction and remodeling, and I know with some of the code officials here, we have a lot of experience too, and with NIA and Northwest Natural as well representative. I just want to throw out there that there is another candidate that has a lot of access to data and experience with above code energy performance programs. So I'll just leave it at that. Thank you.
Through the chair, I just add to Eli. I think that's a good point, and David has shown up in front of our committee before a number of times with a lot of studies and work that both his organization and other organizations have conducted around the code. So I know that he would at least be a good resource for looking at data if the subcommittee was so inclined to look at additional data around energy code.
And Mr. Chair?
Go ahead.
Yeah, Rich Fry here. I'm noticing on the list here that we have a proposal for the chair to be the building official from the city of Portland. And I'd like to make a recommendation that we might make Mike Goodrich a co-chair. I just think that both sides of the industry need to be represented equally.
This is Eli, through the chair. I like that recommendation. I could get behind that as well.
Any more discussion on this?
Hey, yeah, this is John Camiller. I talked it over with Mike, and I know that he's willing to do that. I think it's a good recommendation.
Chair, this is Gordon Anslow. I am also, I think that is a good idea. I have, a well-known interest in affordability and effective regulation on people's ability to afford housing, and I think that having the co-chair position would be a good way to do it. I have kind of played that role in other boards I've been on, and I think it tells people that are watching the proceedings that you have kind of a well-rounded representation going on. Thank you.
So, Tony, is there any regulation about this committee or the structure, or it can be any way we want to have it?
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. My understanding is it's at the pleasure of the board. There's no specific structure or makeup.
Can you go ahead and introduce the name that for this board, for this committee again, the names?
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, this is Andy Boulton from BCD. Was that directed at me?
I don't remember. I don't have sorry, I don't have the list in front of me. But, the name of the members for this committee again?
The chair recommended names are Terry Whitehill, building official, City Portland, proposed chair. Jonathan Balkema, building official manager, City of Albany. Mike Goodrich, vice president, Legend Homes. Carol Eisenlohr, project manager and director, building construction. Gary Heikkinen, senior engineering consultant, Northwest Natural, board member. Shilpa Sarana, National Energy Efficiency Alliance. David Mills, deputy state fire marshal, State Fire Marshal's Office. Nate Morgan, purchasing manager, Par Lumber Company. Chad Ruhoff, Neil Kelly Company.
So the only change is based on the discussion is making Mike as co-chair. That's what, from the consensus, is that Mike will be a co-chair.
Chair, this is Rich Fry. That was my recommendation, to have Mike as the co-chair, and other than that, I have no changes.
Any more discussion?
Mr. Chair, this is John Camiller. I'd make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move that we approve the 9 members on the chair recommended committee members for the Oregon Residential Specialty Code Review Committee, with Terry Whitehill and Mike Goodrich being co-chairs of the committee.
I second that.
Are we going to, help me here, are we going to a vote now, or Tony?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chair, we could go ahead and do a roll call vote.
Sure, go ahead.
Eli Volume. Eli Volume.
Yes, I approve.
Thank you. Rich Tover.
Agree.
Douglas Lethane.
Yes.
Emily Kemper.
Yes.
Rich Fry.
Yes.
John Camiller.
Yeah.
Forrest Barnes.
Yay.
Gordon Anslow.
I approve.
And Acting Chair Revi. Cameron Hollow.
I approve.
Mr. Chair, the motion passes unanimously.
Thank you. Lost check. Now we move to the next item is the energy ready solar. Mr. Mike Heizer.
Thank you, Chair Tamarlet. Through the chair, Mark Heizer, Building Codes Division, bringing forward item 7B for the committee today. Little background, once again, this is in regard to Executive Order 17-20, item 4A. In that, it had, the item A requests that the division is directed to conduct code amendments of the state building code to require all newly constructed buildings will be ready for the installation of solar panels and related technologies by October 1st of this year for residential structures. So, unfortunately, this item was going to be in with earlier work, and of course, here we are on a go-to meeting call today. We have what's before you is a meeting that executive orders requirement for 1 and 2, the buildings under your purview to be ready for the installation of solar panel. All buildings will be ready for installation of solar panels. This was in earlier packets, but to refresh everyone, today what you have before you is a modification to the residential code that we need to move forward earlier than the 2021 code to meet the deadline of October 1st of this year. You have several options for voting, but at this point, I would like to turn it back over to Andy to give a little, both for public comment and then for the board to discuss. Thank you. And we'll be available for comment or questions afterwards. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Through the chair, we have a request for oral comment from Shannon Souza, professional engineer from Oregon Solar Energy Industry Association. She has also submitted written testimony.
Are we ready? This is Shannon. Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yeah, we can hear you, yeah.
Oh, excellent. Thank you, Chair and Committee, for this opportunity. My name is Shannon Souza, as said, and I'm a professional engineer. I'm also the founder, principal, and responsible for managing Indonesia solar companies out in Tucson, Oregon. My sustainability, construction, and consulting firm has been installing solar systems on the Oregon coast for over 16 years. And I regularly provide solar-ready consulting services for residential and commercial and new construction. I also serve on the Governor's Resilience Mitigation Advisory Council, where I represent the professional engineers in Oregon and advocate for the inclusion of solar plus storage as an effective and readily available technology for vastly improving the resilience and recovery capacity of Oregonians. A comprehensive solar-ready construction code will simultaneously advance our progress toward clean energy and resilient community goals. But today I'm representing Oregon Solar Energy Industry Association, where I serve as a board member and policy chair. Our trade organization represents the solar and storage industries and has provided solar technical training and advocacy for over 30 years. We include installers, manufacturers, and distributors with a comprehensive base of knowledge and experience. We are well poised to provide invaluable input into any solar-related rulemaking. Oregon's prescriptive installation guidelines.
Hey, Shannon. Shannon. Hi. Hi, this is Emily. Hi. You're really garbled. Yeah. I just don't want to, I don't want you to get so far into your testimony that we haven't understood anything that you're saying.
Let's see, I'm not sure how to fix that. This is a rural broadband failure. Is that any better? Is that closer?
Not much.
This is Gordon. I have to say I basically haven't understood more than about 3 words so far. There's all kinds of tweaking and feedback stuff.
Can we mute everybody and see? I see some of them are not muted.
Shannon, if you're called into your computer, it might help if you call back in via your phone.
I will give that a shot. Do you want to move to the next testimony?
Through the chair, is that an option?
This is Andy. Shannon is our only oral testimony.
Ah, okay.
For what it's worth, this is Gordon Anslow. I'm connected by phone. I just thought there was a higher chance it might be better, maybe more legible. I don't know, since I can, of course, hear myself on this.
Gordon, I can hear you loud and clear.
Yeah, okay, so I'm doing the phone just for reference.
Okay, Shannon seems to have gone on mute. Through the chair, we also have a written statement from Shannon, right?
Yes, I think so.
Yeah, it was in our board, or it was in our links for the meeting today, I think.
Yes, you do.
All right.
Can any discussion about the issue and waiting for Shannon to come back?
Mr. Chair.
Oh, yes, go ahead.
Go ahead. Go ahead, Emily.
Okay, I was just gonna ask for a clarification of sort of the issue today. I understand that, this was laid out, the solar ready requirement was laid out in the governor's executive order, and we were directed to implement that by October 1st, but, things have gotten pushed because of the pandemic. And I think, I guess I was just gonna ask Mark Heizer and Andy Boulton for clarification of, are we just being asked to adopt there's some language in our board packet, and so we're just being asked to adopt the proposed code provisions for that solar ready requirement, correct?
Correct. The board would be adopting it as an interim amendment as opposed to through the normal code process.
Got it.
This is Guy Volan. A couple of comments through the chair. I feel like we are kind of maybe trying to push this through to meet the timeline associated with the Executive Order 17-20. And given the disruptions that we had, this body of work merit a little bit more time. I think the comments that we've received in writing and that Shannon was starting to talk about bring up some good points about looking at Appendix U in the International Residential Code and maybe using that a little bit more as a basis. I particularly have concern with requiring a raceway on every home, but not requiring any dedicated space for where a renewable energy system could be installed. So seems like it's going to be adding cost to a lot of homes that will never actually be able to have solar installed. So I think we would be better positioned if we go back to the governor's office and request looking at the timeline and coinciding with the residential code for April 1st. We now have a committee that we can rely on to look at the appendix view and the current language that's proposed and come back with a recommendation. I think the simplest thing is to look at roof space and just requiring some sort of dedicated area for homes that have adequate solar resource. It doesn't have to add cost. It basically just means looking at where you're putting your vents and plumbing stacks and whatnot. So the other piece is the executive order talks about alternatives for buildings where solar applications are infeasible. So I think that's something we might want to look at too, because not every house is going to be able to accept a solar system. So why would we require them to spend money on something that will just never happen when we could look at alternatives for some sort of equivalency? So I would propose that we, just to summarize, I would propose that we see about bumping this requirement to April 1st to coincide with the code change and let the newly formed committee work on this and come back with a recommendation.
Question for Building Codes Division. Is there any study that cost comparison to a different size of houses? For example, if you have, the 1,200, 1,500 square foot home compared to a bigger and larger house.
Through the chair, Mark Heizer with the division. Chair Tamala, I guess like a little more clarification of the question. I'm trying to get the full scope of this discussion of if it's a small house versus big house, or are we talking about the 1,200 square foot home?
Yes.
Okay. Mm-hmm. Did do a general look at that when this was looked at earlier about in discussions with industry of what the would be missing from homes, what's the biggest cost that's involved for retrofit once you are taking a home from and putting in solar, and it was getting the raceway in beforehand, whereas the Appendix U and other programs, Appendix U of the IRC just ask you to identify the pathway. The cost that happens later for drilling and patching and things was determined to be greater in the future, and that the cost per home was pretty negligible for running the small amount of raceway at time of construction versus the additional cost that would take place afterwards if you did choose to go with solar. Thank you.
Any more discussion?
Through the chair.
No,
you go first.
I'll go this time. Okay.
Yeah.
So I have to agree with Eli. I think that we're trying to put the cart before the horse here. I think that the committee that we're going to have looking into this that we've just elected today is going to give us a lot more information as to, sizes, length of runs, 2-story, single stories, all of those type of issues. And I think that trying to meet an October deadline simply because there's a deadline doesn't make sense to me. I think we need the information first before we can make an informed decision. So that would be my vote.
Through the chair, I was basically going to say what Rich just said, so ditto.
To the chair, this is Gordon, and I'm pretty much of the same mind. I mean, I have other thoughts about the whole mechanism of how we go about funding, having, an extremely progressive and excellent energy code, but also be able to have somebody afford to build these houses. And given the pandemic, I think that pushing us back a little bit is kind of minimally a good idea, and I'm supportive of it. Thank you.
Through the chair, Mark Heizer with the division. Unfortunately for us, we cannot approach or change the deadlines, and would have to consider something through a temporary rule, probably, or something else. But unfortunately, yeah, there's no. Sadly, we cannot go back and ask the governor for extensions. This has been set for us, and we're under. And unfortunately for this, we do have to consider the tight timeline. Thank you.
Hey, through the chair, this is Alana Cox from the division. I think Tony mentioned we're going to ask the board to reconvene later this summer after the code committee has had a chance to meet. So maybe a possibility to consider is if through that process we get some feedback on a better approach to solar readiness, we could bring that to that next board meeting for October 1 if the board is more comfortable with that approach at that time, once it's had a little more process and consideration. So just putting that on the table as an option to consider.
Through the chair, Alana, I appreciate that, and Mark, thank you for that insight about your guys' deadlines. I don't know if it's possible in our motion to mention this to make a mention of the timelines, or to recommend that the code committee review Appendix U of the IRC and make that first on their agenda. That seems really specific, but that would be, it sounds like that's probably our best option, particularly if we're going to reconvene later this summer after the code committee has had a chance to get together.
So, Rich Fry, through the chair. It appears to me that in what I'm reading here under options, there's a third option that says we just disapprove the proposed code provisions. So that's not something that I think that we necessarily want to do, but if we're going to get pushed up against an October 1 deadline for implementation, we don't know what that is. Is that not one of our options?
Through the chair, this is Alana again. You could certainly disapprove or modify and approve. It's also okay to table this item, and that would not require a motion. You could take no action today.
I would move that we table them.
And since we have the meeting next October, can we just move it to the next meeting?
Yes, you can.
Do we have to have a motion for this to move it to the next meeting, or because we cannot use this motion which we have now?
Through the chair, this is Andy Boulton, BCD. No, you do not need a motion to move it to the next meeting.
Okay.
This is John Camiller, through the chair. How does our October meeting and presumably a vote at that point meet the requirement that this be in place on October 1st? I don't get it.
This is Alana, Mr. Camiller, through the chair. We are hoping to reconvene the board prior to that October meeting, so that we can you guys can consider the recommendations of the code committee to build in a little more time for publishing and printing for the 2021 code. So that should provide enough time to have something in place by October, if that's the prerogative of the board. I will also say, you know, the deadline is in the executive order, and so like Mr. Heizer said, we're not able to waive that deadline. But the executive order also recognizes that all the board processes are in place, and so it's the board's prerogative to approve code items. So that's kind of where we stand. But I think at that meeting we're hoping to have between now and October, that would provide another opportunity for discussion.
So we will now make a motion on this item, and we will ask the code committee to take this item first, and we will meet before October. We call a short meeting just for this item.
Is Andy correct?
Well, we have any other discussion of this item, or we're going to move to the next one?
Do we need, this is Gordon, do we need to vote on that, or are we, that's not necessary?
I said there is no motion for that, so. Here now, then we have go to the next item, is the announcement. Any announcement from the board or from Building Codes Division? Well, the next one is any items for the board today in the order of the business? I hear none. Debbie, that's call the end of the meeting, or?
Yes. Take the time, please, Mr. Chair. Mr. Chair, if you're ready to end the meeting, that's fine. Just state the time. Mr. Chair, if you're ready to end the meeting, that's fine. Just please state the time.
Okay. I am Rabbi Tamarhat, acting chair, and there is no business, further business of the Residential and Manufacturer Structure Board. And now the meeting is now adjourned at 10:17. And have a good day and stay safe. And hopefully we'll see each other before October 1st. And thank you.